address something, because a lot of people assume that they might not be from the children of Israel, not knowing the history of the Bible. You're an older gentleman. Do you know the history of the Bible?
Somewhat.
Let me ask you, in the times of Judges, right? What was happening during that time? In the book of Judges.
Judges?
Yes. You'll read about Samson, but those things prior to Samson with the Philistines.
With the pillars of salt and the times of Noah, but before that.
Okay, but this I'm saying after the Exodus, because remember, God had chosen people prior. He dealt with all the children of Adam once upon a time, and it was the chosen line. And then he chose Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob, right, to be his chosen people. He didn't choose Ishmael, he chose Isaac. He didn't choose Esau, he chose Jacob, right? And then Jacob became a nation when they were in the land of Egypt, right? And then when he brought them out, he gave them laws, statutes, and commandments. In the times of Judges, they broke them, right? And what happened? They were under slavery underneath the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Philistines, the Gershonites, different tribes. They were enslaved under, right? So when you get to the time of Ruth, Ruth is about who? A Moabitish woman who came to live amongst the children of Israel to bring up seed for her dead husband who was an Israelite, right? So there were Israelites in the land of Moab, which are the Chinese today. When you get to the book of Nehemiah, right? They were mixing with the other races, right? What ended up happening? He told the children of Israel to separate from the heathen. And the women took the male children that were Israelites along with them to those other nations. So there were children of Israel being raised in other nations centuries ago, millenniums. And they've been procreating in those other nationalities. You with me? So today, you might not know. You may grew up as an Asian, but you may have been a descendant of a child of Israel. Yeah, it's not a color thing. Give me Deuteronomy, because I want to answer your question, Deuteronomy 4:25. You understand where I'm getting at? So watch this.
Yeah.
Bear with me. Deuteronomy 4:25. Is that what I want? Scattered?
Yeah, 27.
27.
Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 27. And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whither the Lord shall lead you.
So we're going to be scattered amongst all nations. That's why Acts chapter 2. Go to Acts chapter 2. Because in the process of time, when we were scattered, we still knew who we were. But what happened is that when colonization ended up happening, colonialism and Hellenizing, they took away the nationality of the children of Israel. They forced them not to be able to read and write. They grew up amongst those nations, and now they think they are Asians. They think they are Caucasians. Because I will show you an example. You know about basketball?
Sort of, yeah.
Do you know Blake Griffin?
Heard of him.
All right, can you look him up on your phone? Look up Blake Griffin. Show him to this your father?
Uncle.
Uncle. I want you to show Blake Griffin to your uncle, and then I want you to look up Blake Griffin's father, and I want you to look up Blake Griffin's son. Read that.
This is the book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 5.
Bring it out.
And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven.
Because this was Pentecost. 3 times a year, the Jews had to go back to Jerusalem. So at this time, they remembered who they were. They understood, I'm a child of Israel. It's Pentecost. I have to go make my journey to Jerusalem. Right? You can read that in Deuteronomy 16 and 16. So did you see Blake Griffin? Yeah. Did you see his father?
Yeah.
Did you see his son?
Yeah.
So that's only 2 generations, right?
Yeah.
If you would look at that child, you would assume or think that he's what? By nationality. Caucasian, right? But according to the Bible, you are what your father is. So just in 2 generations, you can see that you would consider him no longer to be black, right? But once you saw his grandfather, you was like, oh, wait, he is a descendant of a child of Israel. His skin color may be different, but his grandfather makes him a child of Israel. So it doesn't go by your skin color. It goes by who your father is. Read that. Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18. You get what I'm going with this?
I understand what you're saying.
Read.
This is the book of Numbers, chapter 1, verse 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers.
So Bob Marley, right? Bob Marley, you would consider him to be a black man, right? But his father, what was his father? What was his nationality? He was American. He was a Caucasian. So Bob Marley, according to the Bible, even though his skin tone is black, he goes by what his father is. So he will be considered a Caucasian. You see that? That's why you had to see those examples. So it's not about skin color, because there are plenty of people like Cameron Diaz. Her father is a Manasseh, Cuban, right? So you would think she's Caucasian, but she comes from the tribe of Manasseh, because you are what your father is.
Bring it out.
You understand?
Yeah.
So she knows because he lives there. But prior to that, those that were scattered, if you say I'm from Italy, my grandfather is German. My great-great-grandfather is German. My great-great-great-grandfather is French. Well, you have to do research now, because we occupied France once upon a time in dark ages. And then there's a lot of mixing going on in the UK.
It's hard to truly know.
Yes, that's why God says this, Romans chapter 8 and verse 16. Because you ever read the parable about the wheat and the tares? That if you believe, that if you could sit and be like, you know what? I believe in this. I'm going to start keeping God's commandments. God says for us not to judge based on skin color. If you believe you're a child of Israel, you're like, listen, I read the history and I know that happened within my history. Then this, read it.
Romans chapter 8, verse 16. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God.
So if your spirit bear witness, like, I read this Bible and it's convicted me to keep God's commandments, then guess what? You have to keep the Sabbath day. What's the law on the Sabbath day? Holy convocation. Coming together with other Israelites. All nations are not supposed to keep the Sabbath day. The Sabbath day was given to the children of Israel. Exodus chapter 31, read verse 15. This is in the Bible. So if you read it, you will know it up. The other nations, if they choose to keep the Sabbath, they can keep it, but they can't keep it with us. You know that, right? Read that.
This is the book of Exodus, chapter 31, verse 15. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death.
Read.
Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant.
It's a forever covenant. Perpetual means forever. Read on.
It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever.
You see that? So the Sabbath is for who? The children of Israel. It's between God and them. He made a covenant with them. So if you bear witness to what you read in this Bible, wait up, our ancestors went through slavery. They were put on slave ships. They were sold across the oceans, scattered amongst all nations. Wait up, because all people weren't alive, we weren't alive during that time. So that's why you have to go back into your history. I know because my ancestors come from the island of Haiti. I could go to my father, I could go to my grandfather and speak with them and like, yo, what happened to our people? Were we originally there? Were we the Tainos, or we were the slaves that were brought there? That's how I know the difference between whether I'm from Levi or I'm from Simeon, because we both dwell in that island. So if my ancestors would have said, and no, we were already there, then I would know I was the Taino. That means I come from the tribe of Simeon. But because I was the slaves that were brought there in the 1600s, I know I'm from the tribe of Levi, according to the prophecies in Genesis 49. So there's prophecies in the Bible. Prophecies, when they come to pass, yes sir, when prophecies come to pass, they become history. So we're going to read a history of, because you read this in the Bible, right? Deuteronomy 28. But there's other parts to it. Genesis chapter 49. No, I got to answer his question. Timothy's 1 and 9. 2 Timothy's 1 and 9. The law was made for the lawless.
Right.
It's not made for the righteous.
Yes.
Right.
All the, yeah.
1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 9. Knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient,
So the law is made for those that are disobedient and are lawless. So you ask, yo, if I'm not a child of Israel, should I just go and start doing my own thing and evil stuff? Why would you? Because the law is made for the lawless. Before we started going off and say, you know what was the job of the children of Israel?
No, I don't.
It was to keep God's commandments and subdue the other nations and make sure they kept it as well.
Right.
Because that's what's going to happen in the kingdom to come.
Right.
Everybody's going to be subject to the commandments of God.
Right.
And if they don't want to do it, they're going to be forced.
Right.
They will be forced to keep God's commandments, which is not bad. God says don't rape, don't rob,
Right.
don't murder, don't steal. Is that bad? That's a good thing. That's why when you look at this, that's why we know those that taught us the Bible are not the children of God. Because if they were the children of God, the Taínos were peaceable. That's what Taíno means, peaceable ones. Why would you rob their land and rape and rob their mothers and take their land from them? They were already peaceable people. Why would you murder them? If you were the children of God, if you was God's chosen people, you would have said, wait up, they're already keeping the commandments. Let's give them more commandments for them to keep. Not do this to them.
Which, yes, I agree. But it also says we've all fallen short. And, of course, we all make mistakes. Of course, that is not excusable at all.
Exactly. That's not
But
excusable.
I don't believe that subjects us from not going to heaven just because.
You sure? Revelation chapter 13, verse 9.
Okay, after this, we're going to enjoy our vacation, all right?
All right, no problem. So I want you to give me the answer after we read it.
Sure.
Because you said that shouldn't negate that even though it happened a long time, because this is what I'm getting, it happened a long time ago. With Christ, everything should be forgiven. It's done away. It was past in the past. We should move forward from it, right?
Yeah.
Let's see if God is going to move forward from it. Because remember, the covenant was those that bless thee shall be blessed, right? And those that curse thee shall be what? Shall be cursed. Read that.
This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 10.
Yeah.
He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword.
So it says those that led you into captivity shall go into captivity. Those that killed you with the sword must be killed with the sword. Read on.
Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
So the saints are the children of God, the Israelites. He says if these things happen to you, the people who did this to you, gonna have to pay that same judgment.
What is a nation? Nation is men leading by example. Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is children with role models. Nation is unity. Nation is you. And finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord. His word, His word.